Welcome, everybody, to our first Acquiesce Tasting Experience virtual tasting. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure everybody can hear me. Can everyone hear and see? Is everybody getting a picture on their screen right now? Type, if you can't, if you're having problems, type in the chat window on the right. I will be keeping an eye on that throughout. I am Robin Black. I do social media for Acquiesce, and I will introduce Norma. We'll get started in just a second. I want to take care of some housekeeping things first. We do recommend Chrome as the browser for this. We found that it handles Crowdcast better than the other browsers. But if what you're on now is working fine, then just stay with that. We will be having question and answers throughout. And we'll catch up at the end if we've missed any to have a few more Q&A at the end. If you do have a question, please do not type it in the chat screen on the right. If you'll look to the bottom right under the video screen, you'll see an Ask a Question button. And if you'll click on that and type your answers there, that's where I'll be watching them, and I will pass those on to Norma as we go through the tasting. The wines we're going to be trying tonight are the ones that are in the Acquiesce Tasting Experience Package. They're all 2019s. We have the Grenache Blanc, the Viognier, and the Grenache Rosé with a pairing for each. We are recording this, so we'll have it up on the website. If there's something you wanted to go back and review later, or if you wanted to check the questions and answers, we will have those as soon as it's available to us from Crowdcast. We'll put a link up there. On to the tasting. I know that's what everybody's looking forward to. I would like to introduce those of you who don't know Norma, but hopefully I think all of you have probably met her in the tasting room. She is our resident somm and wine educator. We love Norma. She's our rock star, and she's going to do the tasting tonight. Take it away, Norma.
All right. Hi, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us for this is a very exciting, momentous time. Acquiesce's first virtual wine tasting, showcasing our first in the series of our Acquiesce Experience Package, which I'm very excited about going through and talking about the pairings that we're suggesting with us as well. And let's see. Yes, be comfortable and shoot some questions my way. I love that, and that way I know that you are on, and I'm keeping you alive and attentive, not falling asleep. So let's start. Oh, by the way, some of you may have the wine ready to go and open and taste, and some of you might be watching just to take notes and save them for later. So that's okay too, while the rest of us enjoy sipping and gulping, evaluating the wines. So anyway, let's get started. The first one that we are going to showcase in our packages, our flagship wine, our grape varietal that Sue first planted on our estate, and that is the Grenache Blanc 2019. And I love holding the bottle up. I like looking at the shape. These bottles are so beautiful that they are in their own right art. And so it is a gorgeous label. So go ahead and pour in your glass if you haven't done so. I just like to pour a teeny bit at first, just because, when you're swirling and sniffing, it doesn't spill over the edge, and sometimes I do that too. So now I'm not there to see what you're pouring, so if you're pouring something a little more, that's okay. We'll get to that drinking part. All right, so I like to swirl a wine first. Actually, I love the color too. And if you have a napkin right there, I do, because we're having a little taste and I'm kind of messy. So I'm gonna hold the napkin up to it. And white wines sometimes are a little more difficult to identify the coloration, but with Sue's wines, there's definitely a myriad of light straw, and the center has a white, and that's actually the sign of a very young, youthful, bright wine. And as it goes out to the rim is the inside of the glass that touches the glass, itself. And that tends to have a little bit more color, like it gets a little bit of a golden, and you can hold it up over it. I held it up earlier over my shirt, and I was like, well, I'm seeing some blue colors in here. So just, that's why a white cloth or a white napkin works really well. So we're gonna swirl it. And why do we swirl, besides wanting to look like we know so much about wine and we're total geek outs, is that it really does affect your ability to ascertain the aromas of a wine, which I've always said in my years of teaching is a little bit of a promise of what you're going to be tasting. So let's swirl it. And what I've taught for years, and this works, I know it doesn't look cool, but put your hand over it and swirl it aggressively. Now I like to hold the glass in my hand like this, and it's certainly okay for you to swirl it on a surface like that. It's fine. I like to hold it like this, closer to my nose. So holding it, your hand over it will allow those aromas, those beautiful aromas to escape. And Sue Tipton's wines are completely aromatic and so beautiful and so wonderful. You know, Grenache Blanc is a big part of the fabulous Belle Blanc, Sue's homage to white Chateau Neuf de Pape, and also Ingenue. All right, so swirling a little bit, and then I'm going to ask you to learn how to smell. And I'm sure you're going to say, wait a minute, I know how to smell. What is she talking about? I don't think she's a sommelier. So sometimes I wonder myself, but instead of like little what I call bunny sniffs like that, you really need to inhale those aromas deeply past this little area in the back of your nose. And this is all the physiology that I'm going to teach in this class. Trust me, or I will totally lose you. And it's called the olfactory epithelium. It's a teeny little bulb about this big. It's way back here. But you need to, you can take your hand off. Sorry, I kind of did. Inhale deeply so those aromas don't just go to the front part of your nose. They go all the way up to the back of your nose. That is where the receptors go, millions of them in fact, go to our brain. And actually, sensory scientists say they really don't know quite where these places are. They're a combination of the left and right brain. So swirl some more and then tip it. I smell this beautiful aroma. I always start with fruit, and I go down the checklist, fruit, spice, and it can be any kind of spice. It can be spices from your cabinet, exotic spices, Asian spices, cooking spices, and then anything that's related to a tree or a grass, and you're going to say, what? I don't know what that is. We'll talk about that as we go along. So swirling it and smell. Inhale deeply. What are you smelling? What kind of fruit? And you can pop a question to me right now if you want to, or your answer.
Yeah, feel free to put comments in the chat section if you'd like to. Sue says she gets green apple.
Okay, green apple, of course. Sue Tipton, our owner and winemaker. She knows what she's doing with this wine. Anyone else? The reason why I love asking you before, and you can't really you can't be wrong. It's what your perception tells you. I don't like to always tell people what they're smelling ahead of time. But having said that, I'm getting a little bit of spicy pear, like an Anjou pear. And I love Anjou pears. You know, those pears are just kind of big, and they come in those little styrofoam white cups. And you bite into them, and they're crunchy. This reminds me of that on the nose. I haven't even tasted it yet. So maybe some apple, like Sue said, some green apple. How about some just clean, delicious, little bit of acid now? When I say acid bowl, I haven't tasted it yet, but that acidity that makes saliva rush forward in your mouth. I'm smelling it, and I can already taste it through my aroma. And my mouth is actually salivating. That's also in my anticipation of tasting it. So let's go ahead and taste it. Swirl, sniff. Okay, and then let's taste it. So a question that I always ask is, we talked about the different aromas, spicy pear, apple, green apple. Is anyone getting that on the palate as well?
We have a comment of golden delicious apple.
Ooh, certainly, yeah. Because they don't get really overripe like a Macintosh apple. I'm from upstate New York, so Macintosh is a big apple there. But it is, that's great. I love that. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah.
We have shy guests. They need more
Oh,
wine.
they're really shy right now, the first wine. Okay. All right, that's okay. So when you taste this, where does it hit your palate? Right in the very, what we call entry, and the fruit of the spicy apple and the pear just kind of explode on the first part of my tongue. And then I'm getting on the mid palate, which is really the middle of your tongue. A gripping sensation, which the Acquiesce wines are famous for, that I've always been completely impressed with. That not only do you get a wonderful entry of fruit and explosion of flavor, but you continue to all the way to the back of your palate. And even though there are no taste buds in your throat, it's so much better to drink it, isn't it? Yes, of course it is. So the acidity hits me back here. And a lot of the acidity in this wine is what we call minerality. And a lot of people say, what's minerality? That is a very difficult word or adjective to describe. You know, there's the person that I always read all of his books. He was a sensory scientist, professor, and actually founder of the school. And he wrote something that really impressed me. It's really almost impossible to describe an aroma or flavor to someone that they've never smelled or tasted before. And he was a genius, and he was a beautiful man. He wrote a lot about smelling the world, smelling everything, and experiencing your world. And we're going beyond the wine. We're going into food. We're going into the earth and all the flowers and everything that we're connected to. And that's what I love about Acquiesce. There's a great connection here that I felt right away, and I'm sure you did too. So when you taste this, that minerality, back to that, if you were to take a couple of rocks, and I'm sure you all have access to some rocks or stones, and rub them together, there's like a powdery kind of a vapor that you can smell. And actually, it goes all the way back down to what we call the retronasal. That's that involuntary way that we smell that goes in our mouth and up to our nose and back again. And it's almost like you're tasting the stone, the rock. And I think part of it, the great minerality in Sue's wines, to give it interest and complexity and ageability. A lot of it has to do with her impeccable care of her beautiful vineyards. And Sue's wine is made in the vineyard, not in the winery. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And I do want to hear some questions. Just pop them out. Be comfortable about it. Okay, let's try the pairing. I know you're like, I want to try the pairing with it. So we already tasted the wine and analyzed it. And now we're going to pair it with a delicious little cracker that has little hints of rosemary in it. But that's a goat cheese and a violet flower confit. Now, as I was saying before, when you are smelling wine and smelling the flowers and smelling your world, smell food, smell everything. So in your experience package, we paired this with the confit of violet flowers. So I love to take the top off of this, and if you have yours right there, you talk about pungence. Oh, it's got that really heady, concentrated, perfumey aroma of violets. And a confit, there's a lot of ways you can make a confit. Slow cooking over hours and hours at a very low temperature, and oils, fats. Well, there's no fat or oil in this. It is also the concept of cooking something down to its smallest part. So this is a simple syrup that's been cooked and cooked and cooked, and there's a gelée added to thicken it, and then these beautiful little violet flowers were added. So just enjoy that headiness, that beautiful aroma. So we placed just a little bit of that on this cracker. It has a little bit of herbs on it, and that's a pretty substantial cracker to hold up to the. That's a generous portion too. Rodney fixed this for me. Messy. I'm going to be messy. So let's taste the wine again. Smell first. Just that gripping palate. I love it. All right, let's taste it. cream or the goat cheese. It's so lovely and light, yet it has flavor. But the violet flower confit really sets it off. The perfuminess of the confit, I think, is a wonderful addition to this spicy pear and apple. Any comments? Anyone want to ask a question about it or give me their impression?
Is anybody doing the pairing part along with this? Is anyone at home trying this right now? Feel free to answer in the chat section if you are. By the way, Sue wanted to point out there are approximately 350 acres of Grenache Blanc planted in the U.S.
Yes. Was that a question, or you're just passing on?
Just an interesting fact. Maker.
Absolutely. And quite rarely do you ever see Grenache Blanc as a varietal 100%. In the south of France, where it is a classified grape in Châteauneuf-du-Pape and then further down into Provence, it's blended with other grape varietals, rarely seen on its own. And it makes it really special for Sue to showcase it 100%. And then think about this too. No oak, no malolactic fermentation. It's a beautiful expression of this grape. The plant material that Sue acquired for all of her wines were from the Talus Creek nursery. And then prior to that, those cuttings came from Chateau Beaucastel. The parent family that co-owned Talus Creek brought the cuttings over, and they go through a very lengthy certification process to the point where they, sometimes it's like, okay, when are these grapes going to be ready that we can use the cuttings to plant them? So Sue's vines are pedigree to the nth. And this is another reason why, Sue starts with great quality vines and manicures them very well in the vineyard. Okay, maybe we should go on to if you're ready, the Viognier. And I have a little story about Viognier. It's funny, I was thinking about this yesterday and today about my, go ahead and pour a little bit too in your glass while we chat. That the only really Viognier that I ever really have liked prior to coming to Acquiesce were the offerings in the Rhone region in France, in Northern Rhone. They're 100%, but very difficult to get your hands on. They're very costly. And then, of course, the Viognier is available, and the Viognier blends also in the south of France, but they're blended. And then in California, I have never really been a fan of Viogniers planted here. And this is like a true story. And I found them to be very heavy and weighty, high in alcohol. Most of the time they were oaked heavily, so I'm getting a lot of other flavors that I'm not a fan of, like vanilla, pencil shavings, just over the top, just a big wine, high alcohol too. So I came to Acquiesce about 2 years ago, and I was referred here by another winery, and it changed my life. And I tried Sue's wines, and I just couldn't believe how amazing the Viognier was. It was so different, so completely the antithesis of any New World or California Viognier I've ever had. And in many ways, very similar to those very costly, rare Northern Rhone Viogniers. So that's a true story. And I'll tell you, I know a lot about French wines because I've been drinking them for 25, 30 years, and fell in love immediately with her elegance and grace of how she makes wine. The Viognier, Sue calls it her little princess in the vineyard. We have 1 acre of it that Sue planted, and you can go ahead and start doing the swirling thing while I'm chatting here. Pardon me?
Yeah, I wanted to point out Doug and Cheryl Hunt said that they've got the wines and the pairings, and they say both the wine and the pairing opened up a lot with the tasting.
Oh, good. Great. Fantastic.
And Sue mentions that our Viognier, which is always the first to be harvested, will be picked in about 30 days. So harvest is coming up quickly.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, Sue planted 1 acre here in 2011, It's difficult to grow. It's little princess in the vineyard. But Sue has told me this herself, that when it does ripen, it's like these little beautiful little clusters that look like little Christmas ornaments. And so I'm going to definitely make a trip out there and check it out. It's the vineyard that's bordering the Peltier Road. So 1 acre planted in 2011. So let's have some fun with the nose on this color. Let's see. Oh yeah, this has a teeny bit more gold. Or is anyone seeing that? A little bit more gold. And what else? I see a brilliance. Actually, I meant to say this about the Grenache Blanc. If you're in a room with bright lights like we are here, it's like diamonds. It's the clarity and the beauty of these wines that is mind-blowing. You know, when I did sensory evaluation for my students at Napa College, I used to kind of kid around. I'd say, all right, let's see if we can see anything floating around in our wine. Like, do you see any barges? Do you see any animals? Do you see any? And they would take me so seriously. But Sue's wines are just so clear, diamond, just luscious looking. All right, beautiful color, a little bit of gold, a little bit of white in the center. Let's smell it. Is anyone doing this? Hi.
If they're not, they should.
I have done this so many years in front of groups. I used to tour very large groups when I lived in Napa, and I'd have 40 or 50 people in the group, and I'd have to stand on a pedestal to get their attention, and I would do this, and I would tell them, don't take your hand off until I say. And they would take their hand off after they swirled and inhale. And they literally, some of them were like, wow, that is crazy. That's like, and I said, you know what, it's legal too. So, but you really do get that. I know it. It's such a wonderful experience to know that there's more to a wine's aroma than just kind of going and then gulp. I know we're all eager to gulp a wine down. I know that, especially when I'm thirsty. And I'm sure you get thirsty too. So, okay. I love to talk about the aroma of this. And I looked at my notes from a few months ago, and it's changed even since then. I got what we call stone fruits out of it. This was about 2 months ago, stone fruits. So stone fruits, you all know what stone fruits are, you know, nectarines, anything with a stone in it, apricot, peaches. So this has a lot of stone fruits, but now that I'm smelling it, I have been the last few days, I'm getting more of a honeyed tangerine. Someone asked the other day, well, what if I don't know what a honeyed tangerine is? Well, if you think about a tangerine, and those are fruits that we can, yeah, is there a question?
No.
Okay. When you think about, go into a market and just grab some different kinds of oranges, because you will find a lot of the notes of the different types of fruits in Sue's wines, Acquiesce wines. So a honeyed tangerine would bring to mind something that's really like ripe and sweet. But here's the thing. I know her wines are 0% residual sugar. That means all of the sugar that was in the grape at harvest was fermented off. So the wine is what we call dry. But on the nose, there's this voluptuous honeyed tangerine. Kind of reminds me too a little bit of, go back in my yard and I have all kinds of flowers blooming, like tree flowers blooming. Does anyone go out in their backyard and smell things and like in early morning when there's lots of dew, just go out and walk on the grass and smell the grass? Well, you better start living, people. That's all I'm saying right now.
A lot of us have citrus trees in our backyard, citrus blossoms.
Yeah.
Sort of perfumey one that I get in. In fact, in a lot of the Acquiesce wines, I get that one. And that's one that people might more immediately identify with.
Perfect. You see, this is going to open up. You will drive people crazy because you'll go into the market and you'll be going, put down, smell, put down. Well, it's probably a good idea to what you pick up, maybe now, to take it home with you. And then any kind of fruit, really. Like also now that I'm realizing what I smelled in this, because I'm getting a memory of what I smelled without smelling it. Does that make sense? I mean, okay. If it doesn't, I get it. A little bit of melon, because I was thinking melon. So, and there's all kinds of melons. So grab some fruit in the market, get it when it's maybe unripe, take it home, put it on your counter in the kitchen or a warm spot, and be aware of how it smells as it ripens. And there will be an occasion you say, okay, that's an unripe aroma, and this is a ripening aroma. Just pick it up and smell it. Be part of that. And then you'll know one day, oh, this is really ripe now. Peaches are a great example too.
I was going to say, peaches are so great to get that range of aromas. I was thinking about that yesterday when we were talking about this, because you go to the grocery store, and because of the way food is handled in bulk, you're going to get these rock hard peaches in the store.
Oh yeah.
Get one, cut it open and see what it smells like while it still has that kind of greenness to it. And then we all know how that aroma evolves while it sits on your cabinet, on your countertop, slowly ripening. But the peach is so easy to smell that progression of aromas.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Just experience everything. I love it when the fall comes, because everything starts to get crispy. And so you're getting the smell of crispy leaves when you walk outside, and just paying attention to that when you're in the gardening, and all that wonderful pungent earth aroma comes up too. All of those aromas, you will find every one of those in wine. It makes it very exciting. Okay, so we're going to try it. I know you're going, whenever. So swirl it some more, smell. Okay, let's taste it.
Is this a sweet wine, Norma? And why might people think it's sweet?
Why might people think it's sweet? Well, no, it is not a sweet wine. It is a very beautifully well-developed Viognier that showcases the flavors that it's supposed to have. And that's kind of a roundabout way to answer that. But the other part of that is the threshold. People have a threshold for ascertaining different sweetness levels in foods and everything. So, for example, I have a very low threshold, so I can tell if something has any sugar in it. Some people need a lot of sweetness and ripeness and sugar to be able to say this is sweet. So everyone has their own palate that the entry of the wine might be different for. And what makes this different is you can definitely tell the dryness, because, again, that gripping stone fruit palate in the center, and the great acidity. Now, sweetness at harvest, the grapes are ripe, they have sugar. And the trick that Sue is so great at in her harvesting, that's one of the toughest decisions that a wine grower has to make. One of the toughest. I'm sure she'll tell you there's lots of them. But when to harvest. So she's out there tasting the grape and getting an impression of, this is how this wine is going to taste. I'm going to let it hang just a little bit longer. Let it lay on the vine a little bit longer. And then within, maybe it could be the next morning, it'll change, be completely different. And it's that ripeness that transmutes through the proper amount of sun and picking at the right time. If you don't pick your grapes at the right time, they'll start to get sugary, and there won't be any acidity, because the more sugar a grape gets at ripening, the less acid, natural acidity is going to be in the fermenting juice. And we need acidity for structure and balance. And also with her wines, also that rock rubbing together kind of thing. Anyone have any questions about that? That's kind of a...
We have some questions about pairings.
About what?
Pairings for Viognier.
Pairings for it. Should we do it?
I'll just read Deanie's question. She says, I have a bottle of Viognier open to go with some herb chicken and salad. Is this the wine you would recommend to go with this out of the three you were presenting? And then I believe we had another question from David, I believe.
Okay.
Who wants to know which meats pair well with the first two wines, with our two whites?
Oh, what meats? So you mean meat and chicken and fish and all that kind of thing? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there's a great deal of, again, these are not simple white wines. They have a lot of complexity, mid-palate, and finish. And so they can really withstand and hold up to a lot of different types of meat. Now, I have had the Grenache Blanc with everything from charcuterie. It goes with everything. Charcuterie to grilled chicken legs, chicken quarters, which is a heavier meat, and I'm getting smoke on it. But the key here is that the wine has complexity to see it through, to hold together with the food. And the spices. When you are dealing with spices, the really stronger spice, like hot kind of Asian spices, I think Viognier is great for that. I love Viognier with spring rolls. I know that's not a meat, but also wontons, chicken wontons. I love it with filet mignon because I put a lot of butter on my filet mignon. I don't spare the butter. And the both of these wines, really, that acidity and that minerality really cut through it. And it's also welcoming. You've just had a piece of meat off the grill, since we're all grilling now. Stovetop is kind of like what we do in the winter. And we want something refreshing and light that's not going to get lost by the food. So these aren't oaked either. If you have oaked wine, then you've got another complication. You've got another factor involved. So that would be probably a little more difficult to say for me to answer. If we were dealing with oaked wines right now, it would be harder to answer that question about what kind of meat, because oak will change the whole thing and the mouthfeel. So,
what about meats people might not think of going with white wines like pork or lamb? Sue points out that we had a great pairing with the Viognier at a winemaker dinner here. It had a lamb paired with it.
Yeah. What was the first part of it?
Pork also goes with pork.
Pork? Yeah, pork. Viognier are you asking, is this a question that you're asking about? Does Viognier?
Yes, what meats can people pair that aren't, or maybe people would think white wine and chicken or white wine and fish, but what about white wine and pork or white wine and lamb? Do our wines work with those, and why? Why can you dependably reach for the Viognier to go with a spicy lamb dish?
Well, I think, once again, it's the complexity of the wine, the spice that holds these wines together, the mid-palate and the finish, and they're not high in alcohol. How many times have you opened a bottle of something and had it with a heavier dish, or, meat or poultry or whatever way you prepare it, and you open the wine and you taste the wine, and it's like, oh, that's good. I think that's going to be good. Doesn't matter if it's white or red or whatever. And then you taste your entree or your meat dish or your sides, and then all you're tasting are the food. All you're tasting on your palate is the food. And then the wine gets lost. So when you go back to the wine again, those flavors of the meats are heavier, and they have more texture. They have more seasonings. They just have a lot more flavor all the way around. I mean, you could say that about fish also, because I put a lot of seasonings on my grilled salmon. And then you go back to the wine again, you're like, this wine is just not happening. This wine is not happening. And truthfully, I drink these wines with pretty much everything that I serve. They're very versatile. And again, it's the complexity, it's the lack of oak, it's the lower alcohol, but it's the finish. The finish, it's the mid, it's the entry, mid, and finish that make it so fabulous. Let's try the pairing. Speaking of that.
Speaking of nice spicy flavors.
What's that?
Speaking of nice spicy flavors.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's talk about this. This is a Manchego cheese. I'm sure some of you have had it when you've been in here. And we're serving it with, in your package included, some mango chutney. If you want to smell your mango chutney. There's like that really delicious, like mango-y, tropical fruit flavor. and a little hint of curry. So that's going to be fun. So serving it on the cheese is going to actually be a great pairing with this wine because there's some mango in this too. I tell you, it's so complex. Let's smell it and then taste it again. Mmm. I'm going to ask the question. Did the pairing go? Do you want to go back and try the wine with it again? I know I do. The wine, the Viognier, holds up beautifully to the mango and the chutney and the cheese. And you know, the Manchego has that creaminess, that sharpness. There's a little bit of edge on that. The Viognier is just lovely with it. You know, because curry can be very pronounced. Any comments from anyone?
Ben says, wow, delicious.
Do you like the wine, to go back to the wine, and does the wine, we were talking earlier about, does the wine get lost, or does it bring out more of those flavors in the Manchego and the chutney?
Sue says that with the mango chutney pairing, it's easy to see how it would pair with the spicy lamb tagine. Absolutely.
Yeah, and lamb is one of my favorite meats for sure. Actually, we're going to go on to another wine that is quite spectacular as well that you got in your package. And again, let's look at this gorgeous color. Grenache Rosé 2019. You know, I love the color of this rosé. When I served it in the tasting room, I'd always hold it up to the light and show people, my guests, how beautiful those colors are. And let me tell you, it is not easy to get this kind of beautiful color in rosé. Knowing a lot of rosé wine producers over my years of drinking and experimenting and selling wine, that is one of their biggest challenges for rosé wine producers, to get that. And it's simply a matter of the tiny amount of skin contact to the juice, which is what Sue does. So now you know our Grenache Noir, Grenache Rosé comes from 100% red grapes, Grenache Noir, which are the red version of Grenache. In the Grenache family, we have the Grenache Blanc, which we first tried. And then there are variations in the family of Grenache, well, which Grenache Noir is as well. So Sue's got two different variations of the Grenache Noir in the Vineyard, what we call clones. So they just provide a different characteristic, if done properly, which is what this is, to give it this gorgeous, gorgeous color and depth, and also complexity and flavor. So 2019, dedicated rosé. All of our Grenache Noir grapes go into the rosé. Tiny amount of time with skin contact to get that color, because that's where a wine gets its color from. All juice in all grapes, except for maybe one or two, one of them being Alicante Bouschet, have red juice, but all of the other grapes in the world, varietals, have white juice until we're talking especially red skin contact to give it that color. There are color pigmentations in the skin. So it's very tricky to get this kind of color and get this kind of flavor. Let's go ahead and do our swirl on this. Grenache Noir, Grenache Rosé.
Sue says rosé is one of the hardest wines to make.
For the color, to get a beautiful color. Because of the trick in too much coloration or too much what we call maceration, meaning when the grapes are picked and harvested, they're called must. So they need to ferment. So some of that fermentation will heat up a little bit as the sugar is turning into alcohol, and a little bit of that color depending on the trick of the winemaker or the cleverness and the skill. Most of the time, too much of it goes into a rosé for other producers and makes for a very, very dark wine, and adds tannins as well. Tannins are those drying sensations that literally dry your tongue out, but are important for red wines for structure and for them to age. So let's tip it sideways, see how beautiful it is. Let's smell it.
Such a great nose on this wine.
Cherries, strawberries, raspberries, a basket of summer fruit. Oh, I love it. And you know, I don't just drink this rosé in the summer or when Sue has it available. I drink it year round if I can get it. You know, a lot of people think rosé is front porch drinking or by the pool, but this is not this rosé. This rosé ages so incredibly. You know, and I should know I've been buying French rosés for many, many years. And typically the previous vintage, now this is a 19, so this is a new vintage. The 18s that I have tasted the last few months are done, they're over, they're oxidized. Sue's 2018 rosé was aging amazing. It was getting better and better and better. And that, again, that is very unusual. So these, you can age the rosé as well as the rest of her wines. So red fruits, luscious. Let's taste it.
Why is ours a dedicated rosé?
All of the grapes are dedicated to making rosé. Our red grapes, our Grenache Noir red grapes. We don't make a red wine.
It says the 18, which I will also chime in, that it's aging beautifully. She said the 18 is sold out. Of course, we have the 19 has been released now. The 18 is sold out, but if you would like to try the 18, we do still have a few magnums.
Oh, we do have some magnums too. Oh, by the way, there was a comment that a lot of rosés are made the Viognier method, and that's French for bleed, and this is not. This is not the Viognier method. This is purely the light skin contact of the red grapes for just a very short period of time, and then they are filtered off.
The grapes are also picked at a different time for a dedicated rosé, I believe.
Okay.
They're picked to make the rosé and to make a red wine.
Yeah, it's actually, we can ask Sue this sometime, but I was thinking that Sue had said that she tries to pick the Grenache Noir right about the same time that she does the rest of her grapes. But, you know, that could vary season to season as well. Great questions, by the way. So the spiciness on the palate, is anyone getting like a tinge of watermelon? A little bit of watermelon. It's a burst. It's a burst of red fruit. Just a burst. Great acidity, mouth watering. Let's try it with, oh, gotta smell our little pairing here. Our cherry pepper jelly, which some of you are familiar with. I know you're gonna be now because you got it in your package. But this is from Homestead's Farms in Linden. They're a 100-year-old farm, and the recipe, I've been told, is a 100-year-old recipe. So the first ingredient is cherries off of their farm, then red bell pepper and chili flakes. So just smelling this, really, wow, it's really pungent. It really goes right up your nose. So we're going to have that on a little water cracker. So we're going to taste the wine again. Smell, taste. If you want to pour more wine, please do. I'm going to. Comments about it, about the pairing? Spicy. It's drinkable. I just want to drink more and more of this beautiful wine. So pairings, prosciutto, any heavier meats, or any of your meats you were just talking about earlier. Tomatoes. How weird is that? You know, you think, what wine goes with tomatoes? Well, this Grenache Rosé is gorgeous with tomatoes. Yeah.
This is, I live on tomato salad in the summers, and I always reach for the rosé to go with it.
Cool. Great, great. Really great. Oh, you know, I'm going to go back to the Viognier too about food. We were thinking about meats and grilled and all that, but it's the best wine to have with weird vegetables like asparagus and artichokes. And no kidding, I've had it with a cauliflower pizza from Costco. I know, I shouldn't say that, but it just goes. It just goes with it. So anyway, I just had to say that as a quick aside. And I'd be happy to hear any of your comments about any other pairings that you have had that you enjoy.
Erin Bryan says she likes to pair it with the prosciutto and arugula pizza. That sounds
very nice. Yeah.
Nice.
Very good. Prosciutto. Yeah. Love it. Anyone else?
Viognier is what we had the mango chutney pairing with the Viognier, talking about all the spicy stuff. The Viognier is what I like to have with, if I have Thai curries or Indian food that's sort of heavy on really intense spices. The Viognier holds up so nicely with those.
Sure. For sure. Yeah. So I guess we're getting pretty much towards the end of this, but I would love for you to ask some more questions. And for those of you who are planning a meal or just want to have just have some questions about what to serve with what, please email me. And I love that. I have been a sommelier for many, many years from restaurants in Las Vegas. And there are so many unlikely ways to pair food and wine that it's mind-boggling. The things you want to look for are the sweetness of the wine, the residual sugar, if there's any. Ours have none. Oak, you don't have to worry about that. And also the acids, which we have great acidity and minerality. And the fruit holds it together. So there's a lot of things to consider. You want to, when you pair something with a meal, and you can do various pairings too. It's really fun. So email me. I'd love to have you do that. And loved tonight. I had so much fun. And thank you so much for participating and being here.
We have a question.
Question?
Yeah.
Are we gonna? We've got a last minute chance to ask questions before we go. If anybody has any that they haven't asked yet, now's your chance. And if you think of anything later, go ahead and you can either use. I've typed in Norma's email address in the chat window, so you'll see Saul at abwine.com. Send your questions, and it can be about more than the wines we've had tonight. Norma is always available for your wine and your wine pairing questions.
Absolutely.
So we will, any unanswered questions we'll include on the blog link that has the video from this tonight. And that's all. I see no more questions.
All right.
Sue has a question. Should we do this again with different wines? That's a question to the whole group. What does everybody think? I think we should. I think this is fun.
Yeah,
Erin
we should.
Bryan says yes.
Definitely. And
all right. Everybody agrees we should do this again.
well, thank you. I think we should too.
Sue says, how about Roussanne, Claret Blanche, and Bourboulon next time?
Ooh.
Well, we're going to have to put Rodney to work on pairings.
Yes.
Rodney's our culinary genius who comes up with the great pairings.
Chef Rodney.
Which wine, one last question. David would like to know which wine would be best for salmon?
My go-to is the rosé.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, that's my go-to, which doesn't mean that I wouldn't reach for maybe the Claret Blanche, the Grenache Blanc. I mean, I tried, and it's really, there's no problem with having most of these wines opened in your refrigerator. My refrigerator, let's see, what is your beverage for the day, Norm? Well, where's the milk? Where's the cream? It's wine. It's Acquiesce wine time. But really, the rosé is just exquisite with it. And again, a lot of that has to do with how you're preparing it and the size and all that kind of stuff. But if you're grilling it, even poaching it in the oven, Grenache Rosé is terrific for it.
Okay, that's all the questions I see on the chat screen. Rodney's at the controls, so you guys are going to have to close it out.
Bye. Sorry, I'd be proud.